Welcome back to the Treksperts briefing room, coming to you today from the virtual TrekCon. My name is Peter Holmstrom. I'm an author, and my recent book, The Center Seat, a companion book to the hit documentary series by the Nacelle Company, is out in stores now.
Yeah. Well,
And
good
I'm
for
Lisa
you.
Klink. And I'm Lisa Klink. I wrote for 3 years on Voyager.
Also
Yes,
good
you
for you,
did.
Lisa.
Yes, really good for you, Lisa.
That was a great time.
Yes, it was.
In recent years, the phenomenon of celebrities, actors, looking back on shows that were significant parts of their lives has really taken precedence in the podcast landscape. One of the first, most successful, if not the first in our hearts anyway, is the Delta Flyers podcast, hosted by Robert Duncan McNeil and Garrett Wan, who are joining us here today. Thanks for being
Hello.
here.
Yes, we're happy to be here.
Yeah. I didn't know we were one of the first. Wow.
It feels like it. I didn't do any research, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going
It
to
feels
take
like
it.
one of the first.
Yeah. In fact, Garrett, I think we were the very first podcast, maybe ever.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
We're the first actors to do a podcast ever. That's what it was.
Well, do you know, it's funny, like they call them podcasts because Apple used to make the iPod. Like that's where it first started.
Oh, wow.
Before the iPhone, before anything else, I had an iPod. A lot of people had an iPod. It had that little circle you could scroll around your songs and things. And so the podcasts were just ways of getting people to put their own content out, and now,
I just love the word. I just love the word, like, waxing on about nostalgia of the iPod. It's like, didn't I just have one of those? I mean, come on.
So are you saying, Robbie, if Sony won the battle, they would be called Walkman Walkman casts, exactly.
Walkman casts.
Walkman casts instead of podcasts.
Yeah, it's funny that, like,
I didn't know that.
Everybody's sort of forgotten that there was an iPod, but that's where the word came from.
Yeah. Everyone had an iPod back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And then they got smaller and smaller. The iPods get more miniature.
Yeah, and then they had like a little, it was like the size of a cigarette lighter at one point.
Yeah, it was
teensy.
tiny.
Not that I'm encouraging cigarette smoking, by the
way. But we definitely encourage podcast listening.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I think I watched.
Garrett, the Delta Flyers is pretty much your idea. Were you inspired by other podcasts?
Yeah. Well, I did a podcast with Aaron Eisenberg before Delta Flyers called The Alpha Quadrant. So that was the very first incarnation of it. And then Aaron went on to do The Seventh Rule. And then I went on to call Robbie because Megan, my significant other, said, "Hey, you need to do your idea now because it's the pandemic." This was March of 2020 when this fire was lit under my butt by Megan. And she said, you need to have a co-host. Robbie's a good idea. And I said, yeah, he's too busy. He's so busy directing. He'll never agree. She goes, he's not busy now. And I said, yeah, you're right. He's not busy now. So
nobody was busy.
Nobody was busy.
Nobody.
Yeah. But it took some convincing. I mean, Robbie took a day or two to think about it because he really
skeptical.
He was. It was like I was trying to convince him that UFOs are real. Like, he was very skeptical. He was like, oh, no.
Anybody gonna listen to this?
That's what he said to me. You think anyone's gonna really listen to us talk about this? And I was like, yes, I do think so. And thank goodness he agreed. A couple of days later, he said, yeah, we're in, meeting him and Rebecca, his significant other, and we all formed the Delta Flyers, the four of us, and that's how it began. And we went through every single week. We never, Robbie, is that right? We never missed 1 week. I don't think we missed
a week since
we haven't missed
May
a week since May of
2020.
2020. Yeah, we launched on Star Wars Day, specifically because I am a Star Wars fan as well. So May 4th was our launch date, and we have uploaded or delivered a podcast every week since May of 2020. We went through the entire Voyager catalog, and now we are in DS9 with our friends Terry Farrell and Armin Shimmerman joining us as our co-hosts, and we've been having a really, really wonderful time. And it's eye-opening, especially for Robbie, because he doesn't remember anything, and now that he gets to see it all,
but even like right now, Armin and Terry both are saying, "Wow, there's so much we haven't seen." We forgot about this, or we didn't even know this. They didn't know what their other actors were doing in the episode, really. So they're seeing it for the first time as well.
Yeah, we're watching them react like we did. We're like, wow, it's wonderful.
The other thing, Garrett, like, we have put out a podcast every week, but we've put out a lot more. Like, the
sure,
the Patreon community that has joined us to help produce this show and get involved in it.
Right.
They're incredible. Our Patreon subscribers are incredible, and they get, we probably over, we were very ambitious. It's not overcommitted, but we promised a lot. We've delivered all of that. The guest interviews that are like a permanent record for Voyager, at least I feel. We interviewed almost everybody, including the security guards who were standing outside of the doors, or every department. We talked to people, and it was that was all on the Patreon side. So we not only did our podcast every week, but we were doing interviews and bonus material and all kinds of stuff. So
so for our free podcast that you can listen to, that's the however long we put into that, but then all the bonus content that we uploaded is probably doubles or maybe triples the content that we had from just the podcast alone. So we put out a lot of hours for sure.
It's amazing. I'd love to like ask, just for you guys in particular, you were on the show for 7 years. It was a major experience in your life. And you lived it. I mean, you lived it, you lived the reaction to it at the time. What's it like now to look back on it? Revisiting it yourself, revisiting your own work, and that kind of new relationship you have with the show. That was a very unformed question. I'm sorry.
No, it was great. I was waiting for Garrett to answer, but I'll dive.
Okay, go. You go, Robbie. You dive in.
I mean, it's funny because, when the show was being aired originally, we were on a brand new network, UPN, which no longer is around. So there was a lot of challenges with being on a network that didn't have a big reach. I think we reached 60% of the US or 65 or something.
Yeah, we didn't have complete coverage of the United States.
There was a lot of places they didn't get it. Overseas got the episodes, but they got them late. So it was live and it was in real time, and that was one experience. Looking at how our ratings are doing, how many people are watching it, how's it doing overseas. All of that was very current and in real time. But now, for me, the experience is really interesting. I'm meeting people, especially through our Patreon subscribers and the Delta Flyers. I'm meeting people who, this show was such an important part of their lives. And so we're living it in a very different way. It's like it's had a impact on people because it's been with them and gotten them through tough times, or it's connected their families in a way that they watch it together, or it's inspired them to pursue the sciences or technology in some way. So it's a very different experience now. It's not about ratings, it's not about how many people are watching it, it's more about the impact it has on people's lives, I guess I would say.
The other cool thing is that we've had a lot of the fans come back to us who have seen Voyager episodes countless numbers of times. And the minute we started up the Delta Flyers and they started listening, we've gotten, I can't even count the number of emails or people coming up at conventions saying it's like a new show to us right now. I'm like, what? Yeah, because you guys talking about it. Like there are things that we're learning now that we had no clue about when we were watching the show. So even though the show is, now we're going on 30 years old now, it's crazy. I can't believe that.
I know.
It's still like a new show for people when they tune into the Delta Flyer. So that's been something that I've been very proud about. So I feel like we've uncovered something that no one knew about before. So it's a good thing.
It really is, because I feel like, as you mentioned about UPN, unlike TNG, which was like stripped and syndicated over the course of 5-7 days a week sometimes, Voyager was usually on and then there'd be some reruns maybe, but it wasn't quite as accessible as some of the previous Trek had been. So I think for a lot of people, even if they were Trek fans, even if they were Voyager fans, they might not have experienced the show, and Voyager has just become just such a landmark achievement just for the Star Trek franchise and the amount of people that have discovered it years later as the years have gone by.
I wonder if, and I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder if the fact that Jerry Ryan came onto Picard, and a lot of people who hadn't watched our show did watch Picard, younger people, and then because 7 of 9 was on Picard, they went, oh well, I should go back and see where this character comes from, and so that probably helped as well. I think the new Trek and bringing some of that, the older actors, the classic actors
Be careful.
bringing these characters that are part of the mythology and the canon of the show, like Lower Decks does, or Picard, or
or Hologram Janeway on Prodigy.
Or Prodigy, exactly. Like,
yeah,
those are really helpful to remind people to go back and revisit or watch them for the first time. I think I think the fans really love that when there's crossovers on some of these new shows.
the other thing that really helped, and I do believe this, is the pandemic itself. Because of the pandemic, I have had so many fans, of diehard TNG fans, who come to me and said, we didn't want to watch your show at all, and we didn't watch it for 25, 27, whatever, however many years, right? We didn't watch it, but then the pandemic happened, and then we had nothing else to do, so we did watch it. And now I love your show. So I'm here to apologize to you. I'm sorry for not watching your show for almost 3 decades, but now I love your show. So that helped us too. So there's a lot of people who didn't come around to it until the pandemic happened, because they had nothing else to watch. They had gone through everything on Netflix, and they said, oh gosh, let's give this silly Voyager thing a try, even though Picard is #1. We don't like anything but Picard, Maybe if Janeway was bald, we'd watch, I don't know. So they finally they watched it. So that's been amazing to hear those people. Yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't say I'm part of that demographic, but I because I watched the show when it was originally on, but I definitely, because of the accessibility of it on streaming and so forth, like I revisited it during the pandemic as well, and it just hit that note that I hadn't even realized I'd been missing in my life. And it's the note that in a way the new Trek just, and this isn't to be pejorative against the new Trek, but it doesn't quite have that same feel, and to go back to that time with the soft kind of cream colored videos,
carpet on the floors,
carpet on the floors, and the uniforms, the 90s haircuts and everything. It's great. You can't recreate that.
It's funny, I keep bringing up our Patreon Delta Flyers people, but we have Zooms with some of our subscribers every month. And I had a Zoom recently, just a few days ago, where I posed a question to our Patreon subscribers and Delta Flyers members. I said, how has Trek changed, and do you like it? Is it good? Is it bad? And how have you changed? And now that you look at stuff you saw, and it was a fascinating conversation, just fascinating conversation. And one of the things was like what you're just saying is that a lot of people say they miss some of the old Trek because it was comfort food. It was a morality tale in 60 minutes. And you didn't have to worry about knowing 3 seasons of Picard soap opera, storylines where if you jump right in, you're completely lost. You have to watch it in sequence. The old shows, you could pick them up, for the night if you felt like it. And it was great. It was a complete meal. And they sort of missed that. That was one thing that people talked about. Another thing I should mention that people talked about in that conversation, fascinating conversation, but they said the inclusion and diversity that's happening now in Trek is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Everybody agreed on that, if you go back to the original series and some of the attitudes about women or, it was a very specific voice that was writing those shows. And now you've got writers of all kinds. You've got all kinds of people, and it's just a much more inclusive Trek now than it was. And Voyager was part of that too. We had the first female captain.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to add about the pandemic was when people started watching Trek, Voyager was the best Trek, I think, for people to watch during the pandemic, because we are thrown across the galaxy, 70,000 light years away from Earth. We are isolated. We are alone. Guess what? Everybody was isolated, alone. So we got a lot of emails of people saying like, oh my gosh, you guys are like the beacon in the night. You're the lighthouse in the night. You were the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much, because right now I feel like this, isolated, alone, exactly how the Voyager crew is. And you guys are getting us through this pandemic. So,
and they kind of had the same goal, which was to get back to normal.
Yes.
That's
get back to home / normal. Yes. That's right. Yep. Agreed.
So, I mean, you start this podcast, you start watching episodes again. Like what was that experience like? Because I know as you as actors, like, you're putting in a lot of hours every day to go in to do the job. so I mean, some of times you can't even watch the episode when it's finished because you're just doing, you're doing your thing. So like, what was it like for you guys just to dive in for that first time?
Some of the times I can't watch the episodes. Most of the time I never.
Yeah.
I saw very few episodes. I mean, the first season I saw a lot of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't watch 80% or more, 90% of these episodes. I just didn't watch them.
Yeah.
And it's no offense to start, like, it's not a diss. So, like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I still do the same thing when I produce and direct TV shows. I don't watch them on the air. I've seen them 1,000 times. Like, I've been through every spotting session and every edit and every I'm done. Like, I've seen it. So it's that's how I felt in a way with Star Trek. Like, I've shot it. I've been there for 17 hours every day this week. I don't need to watch it. Like, I know what that episode, but now having watched it, I really appreciate that series so much more than I did before.
Yeah.
Which makes my heart happy to hear that. I'm like, yes. But it's interesting because when we started doing the podcast in the beginning, we, our standard thing we would actually do an intro. We'd shoot the intro. We'd talk about, hey, Robbie, how's it going? What's going on? Robbie's like, oh, I just put up this fence in the back of my house, blah, 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 blah. And then, okay, well, let's go watch that episode. We'll be right back. And we physically went and watched it and made notes. Okay. Robbie would be done in lickety split time. And I would still be, he's like, are you done? I'm like, no, not done yet. And so he would then go take a nap. And then he would go shopping. Go trim the shrubs. He'd go shopping. He would go down to the grocery store. He'd go have lunch, whatever. He'd do all this stuff because it would take me 4 times longer to get things done. Because I don't know for me, my brain needs to really keep rewinding. Like I would end up watching each episode probably 10 times, and wow. I just it was nuts, but I could not do it any faster. It was like,
we also used to, when we'd start, we'd have our little small talk and then we'd say, okay, this episode is called whatever the name of it was. Mm-hmm. What do you remember? And it was, it was fascinating because I'd be like, I don't know. I don't remember.
80% of the time, Robbie's like, no clue. Nothing. I have no clue of this. And that became a funny thing that all the fans would listen. Oh, Robbie doesn't remember anything,
And then I'd have to guess. I'd be like, the title.
For the title,
I think it's about.
He's like, this is a Tuvok story. I'm pretty sure. He would, just stab at the dark.
Be wrong.
Yeah. Be wrong. Tuvok's not even in the episode.
Yeah. And then I don't know if it was Robbie's, maybe it was Robbie's idea. This Christmas episode, was that your idea to do? Or all of us, or somebody came up with that. So then we started making up episodes. This is the long lost Christmas episode.
Yeah, we'd make up
oh my god,
unaired episodes, and they were silly and ridiculous,
silly and funny. Yeah. So, but still, it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
I like when you guys would talk about what scenes should have been there.
Now the missing scenes.
The missing scenes. I thought that was really interesting.
Yep. Well, it's funny because Armin and Terry have gotten into that now. Like, with DS9. I love hearing what their thoughts are on missing scenes, it's fascinating because, and again, it's not a shot at the writers, like they didn't do a good job. It's just once you step back and take a look at it, you kind of go, oh, I wish there had been something. I know writers do that. I do that as a director.
Yeah.
We all do that. You can kind of wish, I wish I had just had this one thing. And there's always storylines. Our episodes, Voyager episodes were what, 45 minutes or something?
Yeah, about
less.
Something like that. Maybe less, 44 and change.
Yeah.
So you can't put everything in every episode. There's going to be things you wish you could do, you couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And the missing scene is always a fun opportunity to go, oh, that B story, if they just had a scene, where they completed that, instead of just talked about it in the, on the bridge for a second. Like, I want to see that moment. Yeah.
Although my favorite bonus material segment would have to be our reaction videos. I love doing our reaction videos, and I love watching Robbie's reaction videos. So it got to the point where I would actually shoot reaction videos based on what he shot. Like I would add things in to comment on his, and because that's how into it I got, And I think Robbie never really watched any of mine, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold that against him. I still love him.
I want to keep it fresh. I don't want to be influenced by your reactions.
But I remember specifically very early season 1. There's the episode where everyone's wearing those Crayola colors, that was brown and orange,
the Burger King
outfits, yes. And Tom Paris gets shot, and he does this thing which I've never seen anyone get
training.
He got shot, and he did jazz hands while he got shot, and I was like, "What is that?" And so I impersonated that in one of my early reaction videos, and I was like, "What's going on here?"
My Broadway moves.
Your Broadway moves, but again, it's funny because we typically do anywhere from 2 to 6 reaction videos per episode. But with Terry right now, Terry will submit 36 reaction videos.
She does.
And it's
I
just
don't
like,
watch anybody's.
Oh my gosh. It's like, Terry, you don't have to go that. I mean, she's literally dove into the deep end of the pool on this one. Funny. She's like, I'm gonna go crazy. And it's like, wow. I mean, and we love the enthusiasm, that's for sure. Yeah. But we have to now edit a little bit of like which ones we use, because it's almost like too much right now. But it's, again, that's my favorite segment, I would say, of the bonus stuff that we do. Yeah.
It must be very interesting too to look back, because like Voyager often had, kind of mini arcs or like attempts at storylines, and once the writers got into it, they're like, maybe this isn't quite working out as well. I'm thinking of like the Tom Paris traitor story arc in like season 2 or something like that, where it,
that was resolved though.
It was resolved, but it's it's like, I guess, like
traitor. I thought you said traitor, like
traitor.
T-R-A-T-E-R.
Got in with those Ferengi.
It was all a facade. It was all a facade.
Yeah, it must be interesting to revisit those and kind of like think about just like what could the character have turned into had this.
Yeah, it's funny for me. Like I look back at the first seasons, just at myself and my performance and the way the character was written. And to be quite honest, I didn't like either one of them. I didn't like the kind of rebel without a cause thing, the womanizer thing. I didn't like the stories that he was given, to be honest. I felt like it was damaging an audience being empathetic or sympathetic to that character, the things I had to do. And then I don't think I helped myself, because I probably amplified the things too much that they wrote for me. So I think that character had a huge transformation over the 7 years.
Oh yeah,
maybe one of the biggest on the show.
I think the biggest,
probably. But I think it started in a dangerous place where he could have been very unliked, and that I could see the network or someone saying, just kill him, he's not likable. Like that's how off I think he started, but it paid off. If people stick with it, he does change.
Well, I think at first he was kind of the audience surrogate. I mean, he was the one that kind of got brought in. He was like, the new person on the ship.
Yeah. And
so the audience was kind of seeing things through his eyes.
Yeah, he was always, I liked the way that was written for him, that he was kind of the everyman of like, I don't get this techno babble. What are we doing? Are we going to kill him or not? Like that kind of thing. That was always fun, that quality. But then some of the stories, and it was like when they played around with the Kess and Tom thing, bad move, bad. I don't know how to play that other than what's written. And, I think everybody, not just me, but everybody saw that as not a good direction to go.
Yeah, that was not a good look.
Yeah, it was not a good look.
Well,
but let's forget that ever.
Robbie, you're talking about how if they didn't change your character and the network was like, you know what, we don't really like where this is going. Let's get rid of this character. Likeable. Yeah, and if that really happened, I think that the final scene that you were, doing in whatever episode, I would have dove onto the floor and grabbed onto your one leg as you're trying to walk off the bridge. I'm like, and you're dragging me along, and I'm like, I'm just screaming like that. That's what I would have done the last day.
That would have been a good scene. That would have been a good scene.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of Voyager too, is the Tom Paris and Harry Kim, brotherly relationship that develops over the course of the show. Like, I always think back to that episode with the two of you on I guess you call it the prison planet or something. Like
the shoot,
the shoot. That was such a good episode, and kind of underappreciated, I think. Like it deserves a lot more acclaim than it's got, but it's that's I imagine some of the fun too of your podcast is kind of like finding those moments, the small moments that maybe aren't the big episode arcs. I mean, obviously that one's a big episode, but like, the small moments in between scenes that are just wonderful between the two of you and other cast members as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big one for Garrett. I was mostly suffering.
He was mostly incapacitated. Yes. He had been stabbed by that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a great episode for that relationship because
yes, it was. Yeah.
Harry got to be the hero.
Yes.
And
finally.
that was really important, I think, for that character too.
Yeah. I mean, literally, Tom Paris has been taking Harry under his wing the entire time. And he's like, okay, let me look after you. Let me protect you from Quark in the very beginning. That set the tone, right? From the beginning. Yeah. He saves me from buying those cheap low buy crystals or whatever it was. And it's Tom. And every episode until the shoot, it's Tom. Hey, come here, Harry. Let me tell you. Let me show you the ropes. Let me tell you how to do this.
Let me give you some advice about.
Let me give you some advice. Yeah, exactly about the girls. Yeah, and then boom, Tom's injured, and all of a sudden Harry's thrust into this role where he has to be the hero. He has to take care of.
Who directed that? Was that
Tom.
Uncle Les?
It was Uncle Les Landau, because day one that we filmed, you remember this, Robbie? We look up and we see it's Tim Russ, Roxanne Dawson, Bob Picardo, all these other actors that are trying to basically shadow directors to be able to get a chance to direct, because Robbie had already directed his episode is what it was, I think. And so they were like, oh, it's a reality. It can happen. So they all came to shadow on that very first day of the shoot. It just
Les was really, he was like, and I think Andy Robinson had come over from DS9.
Yeah, oh yeah, so we even had DS9 actors coming at that day. There was
a lot of directors in training, and I think Les was just like, this is too much.
This is again, because they ended up starting to doing their own thing. Like they were having their own party almost. They were like talking this, and Les, somebody had to shut them up a little bit because we're trying to get this episode shot. And
Les,
they were all having fun.
I loved his working with him. His episodes were always great.
And now we're seeing episodes that he directed on DS9 now. So we're reviewing and recapping those. So we're seeing all of his work on DS9, which is really cool. So yeah.
One of the things I really like about podcasting is it gives me a reason to get back in touch with people. And do you guys find that as well?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. Like do you think we would have talked to Ed or LZ, at all after 26 years? No,
that's our security guys.
Our security guys, yeah.
And we spent a lot of time with those guys, all 5 of them over the seasons.
But Robbie, when we released those episodes where we interviewed those guys, those were some of our most popular guest interviews ever.
So well loved. Those.
Oh, they were like, we love the security guards. I just loved it. Yeah,
because they had all the stories of what happened out by the bench.
They're the flies on the wall. They saw everything. So they were the perfect ones. Yeah.
That's amazing. You know what? We talked a bit about the shoot, but like, what have been some other like standout episodes that maybe you didn't even remember that well, and you rediscovered, and you're like, my God, this is wonderful. This is fantastic.
Garrett, take that.
Well, okay. I don't know necessarily about standout their episodic names, but I will say that both Robbie and I were absolutely floored by Jennifer Lean's performances and how important Kes was. Yeah. And how integral she was to the crew and their well-being. Like, we didn't know that. We really thought, wow, Kes was really an afterthought character before we started the recap.
I think that it's easy because Kes was left the show and was written off as an actor on the show. It's easy to kind of go, oh, well, that character just never really contributed, so that's why they got rid of it. She contributed almost more than any other character in those first 3 years, honestly. Like, if you look at episode by episode, even if she didn't have a lot to do, what she did changed the course of each episode that she was a part of in a way that nobody else did as consistently as she did. And she did it so well. She was so good.
You know what Jennifer Lean should have done? The minute that her contract was not renewed, she should have started like Dear Abby, Dear Kes is what she should have started in local newspapers and just answered people and helped them with their lives. It would have been a popular, definitely a feature of any newspaper, I think.
She was, that character was super smart, and I was very impressed that she came back on the show after.
I know.
Not just once, but twice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
like
was
Robbie and
very
I both said, like,
impressed.
I don't think either of us would have done
I
that.
couldn't
Like,
have
if
done
we were released and then they told us, hey, you want to come back and do this episode? I think both Robbie and I would have said, no, you can
Yeah.
put it where the sun don't shine. You know, we would have said no to that.
Yeah, she really rose above it and did a phenomenal job. And yeah, and I wish we were in touch with her.
Yes, yes,
You know,
I do
I know
too.
a lot of people do. I wish we could talk to her and make sure she knew how important that work that she did was, because it was really, really critical for the show's growth. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another person we would love to talk to is Scarlett Palmers. It's really hard to get a hold of her too. It's like, my goodness, little Naomi Wildman would be wonderful to have interviewed, you know, and been part of the podcast. But
she was so good.
Yeah.
She was so good. And she brought out such great things in Ethan Phillips too. Like the scenes when Ethan had scenes with Neelix and Naomi. God, they were so good.
Yeah. And Jerry Ryan as well.
Yeah. And brought out great things in Jerry Ryan. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, like, what were we? Oh, we were just watching a DS9 episode and Brian Keith was in the episode.
Yeah.
And it's funny because DS9 came before us.
Yeah.
And Brian Keith, his performance was, the naturalism of his performance was unusual for Star Trek. Yeah. There was a kind of presentational or formal or classical stylized kind of thing that was just encouraged, not only encouraged, but it was written, it was directed that way. We were literally told by the producers, like, this is the style of this show.
Yeah.
Naturalism was not welcome or encouraged. And I saw Brian Keith doing it and I was like, oh God. And then it makes me think about like Scarlett Palmer's and some, you know, when you get kids in there, they're just kids. Like they can't be stylized.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's why it brought out good things, because there was some naturalism coming into our show in a way, and not to judge better or worse, you know, because I think our show worked in the performance style that we were encouraged and told to do. But I wish that there had been some more naturalism kind of with guest stars or with even our own characters, that just the stuff that the new Trek does all the time.
Yeah.
The stuff that they do with the actors they hire, with the way they allow them to be human beings and not just action figures, you know. I wish we had a little more opportunity for that kind of stuff.
I do believe, though, Robbie, like I said in that last recording that we did, we had way more technobabble on Voyager than they did on DS9 from what we've seen of DS9. And I think that lends to, when you have less technobabble, easier to have more naturalism and more natural type of deliveries. Whereas when you're speaking technobabble,
you're talking about a different planet every week and a different, and all the science around that planet and that alien species. And we had a lot more kind of sci-fi talk.
Yeah.
I think than DS9 did in general.
But you're right, Robbie. How interesting would that have been if the powers that be said to us, no, go as natural as possible, don't do stylized? Voyager would be a different show. It'd be a different show.
Be a very different show.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
How else are you finding Deep Space Nine to be different?
Robbie's team Bashir. That's one thing. It's not necessarily different. He loves Bashir.
Yeah, I love Bashir.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's great.
But it's I would say it's the more realistic of all the Star Treks.
Yeah.
Because they really do. They lift up the corner of the rug, you know, they let all the cockroaches out. Basically, it's just like, oh my gosh, you see so many, you know, really just hardcore tension going on that you didn't have. Like, our tension was the ship's going to blow up every week.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the difference with DS9 and Voyager. Our ship is going to blow up. We're all going to die tension. But their tension is, there's a lot of stuff, you know, going on underneath. There's a lot of lessons being taught in DS9, and I think it's more didactic than Voyager. I really do feel like you're learning more about life from DS9 than Voyager in a way. But we've only dove into the first, we're in episode 12 or 13 right now that we've recorded.
Like that,
So we're still in season 1 right now, and I know that will change. But if this is any indication of what it's going to be, I feel like it's going to get even deeper in DS9 as time goes on, which I look forward to. I like that.
I think that's true. I mean, I think that Deep Space Nine really allowed more shades of gray and moral ambiguity. And, you know, the people on Voyager had to be very Starfleet
Yeah.
and really follow the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because they had on DS9 they had Starfleet, but they also had Bajor and you know, Cardassian politics, and they were all very they had to figure out how to get along. You know, these very different kind of cultures and moral priorities that they all had, and whereas we just had Starfleet basically. And we kind of it's funny, I just thought of this, like we had the Maquis and Starfleet, but we got rid of the Maquis conflict like immediately. Like it was gone by episode 2. Which is a shame, because I think that in the way that on DS9 those different ways of doing things led to conflict that was good for drama, and also defending why is this the way we do it? Why is this the best way? You know, we didn't have to do that on Voyager, but on DS9 they have to do that every episode.
Yeah.
And then, Robbie, you said that the Maquis conflict was gone in episode 2. It was actually gone in episode 1. The minute that Roxanne said, "Who is she to tell us what to do?" and Chakotay goes, "She's the captain," and that was it. That was the end of it. It was like, oh, it's over. Okay, finished. So
I do love that Chakotay impression you got there. That was spot on. That was spot on.
Yeah. So Robbie can do it too. It's the phrase is, because you always have to have one little phrase to get into the character, and is an episode where he says, "Any luck yet, Tuvok?" And so if you just go, "Any luck yet, Tuvok? Any luck yet, Tuvok?" and then that is
Beltran. Robert Beltran.
That's that's him.
A plus right there.
Thank you.
It is wild though. I mean, to your point, it's like it's even in the screenwriting Bible for the show, like with that they sent out to all the pitches to freelancers to pitch on. It's like, yes, there's going to be this conflict between Starfleet and the Maquis, and then it just goes away.
And it went away.
Totally went away.
The other difference between DS9 and Voyager I've noticed is I think the alien ships are cooler looking in DS9 so far. All the different alien ships we've seen,
they're pretty cool.
And there have been some really awesome alien makeups that really, you know, they take the cake. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So I feel like maybe Michael Westmore gave away some of the best stuff for DS9. Got to Voyager, he's like, we'll just do this then. Okay, we'll add a ridge here. That's it. That's what they get. You know, not full prosthetic makeup. You see a lot of full makeups on DS9, like the entire head covered. So
I wonder if it's funny, because I was not aware our first season if we were on budget or under budget or over budget. I don't think any of the actors had any clue. I think we were aware that the pilot went over because we had to switch captains, and I think we were aware of that, but generally we weren't aware of budgets.
No.
Terry and Armin know every episode. Oh yeah, they told us this was way over budget. I was like,
that's so crazy.
How are they so aware?
They knew they literally said, "Oh, this one went so over budget," and I'm like, we were never told this information, so I don't know how they got that.
And I wonder why they were. Maybe because the ships. I thought of it because you said, "Oh, the ships are so good." Maybe they said on Voyager, "We're not going to get in that trouble we got on DS9. We're going to stick to a budget," and maybe that's why our ships maybe were a little more, less detailed or something.
For visual effects, definitely.
That could also have been why, if the makeup was simpler, the makeup put have been a little simpler, because those big, full face prosthetics, that takes a lot of time and money. Exactly.
Yes, it does.
There you go. Yep.
I also I wouldn't be surprised if Deep Space Nine at the time was the most expensive pilot ever produced. It was like $25 million or something.
Oh wow!
They built that whole promenades. That's like the biggest. I think it was also the biggest set of all time for a TV show. And I think season 1 especially, they could have just been like, "Yep, they're over budget again. You got to cut it back." We blew everything on the pilot, and as you're seeing right now, a lot of season 1 of Deep Space Nine, there's a lot of bottle shows in there, and a lot of you're locked down on one location type things. But, whereas
when you have a big beautiful set like that, you want to use it.
Of course, that's true. Yeah, and it's a gorgeous set. That promenade. I did walk over there twice in the 7 year, not the 7 years, but the time that they were concurrently filming with us, I did walk over there twice, and it was like, wow, this is a set. My goodness.
I just like the idea now if you just like popping in randomly in the background, just the Easter egg for the like, oh, I was just sorry, I was looking for the bathroom. Sorry.
We were, oh my gosh, we just earlier, Megan and I went to go grab something from the mall, and we bumped into somebody that we know that works there that's also a fan of Trek. And they said, why don't you talk to Robbie about putting you guys in the diner as extras on Resident Alien? I was like, oh yeah, that'd be interesting. We're just sitting there eating a burger, and the camera pans by. So was that Harry Kim? I don't know. Just keep going.
Geez, that's wonderful.
So Robbie, are you shooting right now?
No, I'm not shooting anything right now. I'm working Resident Alien premieres. I've been doing that show for 3 seasons, 4 years now, almost 5. Yeah, it's not like the old days of Trek where we did 26 episodes and banged them out and they were on the air 2 weeks later or whatever.
Yeah.
These news shows, you'll make 8 episodes and you'll take forever to make them, and then they don't air them for months. And yeah, we finished shooting May 1st and they're just premiering the season now.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
9 months later, 9 months later, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Resident Alien's not shooting right now. We'll see how the season does. I just directed on the show called Alert. I'm going back to that show. So that was a success. And so I'm excited about that. That was fun. It was a Fox procedural, but it was a situation, and I've been in this situation before where shows like they do a first season and everybody's not really happy about it. And I feel like I'm on the list of people, hey, bring that guy in to reboot this thing and make it better. And I think I'm not producing Alert, I'm just directing on it, but it feels familiar. I did that on a show called The Gifted, which was Fox as well.
Yeah.
Came in to produce that show season 2 after maybe disappointing first season.
Yeah.
I did that on a show called The Arrangement. I came in season 2 to produce that show.
Yeah.
The first season was way over budget and not what they wanted exactly. So
there should be a reality show, Robbie, about you called The Fixer. It's
The
just
Fixer,
you
exactly.
fixing all the troubles of first year shows that are not,
I mean, I have to give Star Trek a lot of credit for, all the people there were very generous with their time, even though Garrett mentioned all those people shadowing Les Landau. I did that as well, with editors and with department heads and with writers and with Rick Berman. I sat in on screenings with him. I went to dailies in the office every day with Marvin Rush. And so all of the things I learned from Trek, I really give credit for how I do things now. And some things I learned and repeat, and some things I saw and avoid.
Yeah.
There's some things about Trek that I don't do intentionally, because I don't think that everything about Trek was perfect by any means. There's some things that I very intentionally do the opposite, but there's a lot of things that I learned that I think helped me be a fixer or whatever sometimes. Yeah,
that's wonderful. And Garrett, do you have any projects you're working on at the moment? Or is it a podcast in full time? It's
sorry guys, my dogs are going crazy. The
that's
garage door just opened up. Yeah. Okay. I mean, honestly, I took a break from Hollywood. So I was gone for 15 years, basically. I left. And when I decided to get back into Hollywood, it was 2019. And of course the pandemic happened right after that. So so I'm sort of, I here and there booked a couple of things, some small things, but most of my time, to be perfectly honest, is taken up doing this podcast, doing Delta Flyer stuff.
We do this 7 days a week.
We really do.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, very much so. And by the sound of it, and Patreon's very successful right now for you guys.
Yeah.
Like the last thing that I did physically was the voiceover for Star Trek Online, the game, actually.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the last thing I did.
With the
you got some things coming up.
The Captain Harry Kim, right?
Garrett's got some things coming up he can't talk about, but he's got some things coming up.
Yeah. Look at you going the teaser right there, Robbie. Wow.
I know some things.
So what has surprised you guys the most about doing the podcast?
Robbie,
that people listen to it. I literally told Garrett, I'm like, who's going to listen? Like, we're going to get 100 people to listen to this thing.
Yeah.
And I
Wait,
think now
what do we
we've
got?
had
8 million, 7 million, 8 million downloads
yeah.
now.
Wow.
I don't know. It's
Wow.
just
Yeah, just of the free podcast
Yeah.
and the Patreon is a big part of it. So that's not even counted, but just on the regular streaming services, I think we've had 6, 8, 10 million. I don't know, something like that. It's a lot.
I mean, honestly, for me, the most surprising thing is just the amount of emails and just correspondence and conversations at conventions when I'm at a convention as a guest from people who this podcast means the world to them. You know, this podcast has helped them so much. This podcast is something that they've, you know, profusely thanked Robbie and I for. So that to me is so surprising that people have been that affected, you know, in a good way, in a positive way. So that makes me, again, it's like, you know, every Trek episode from the classic Trek time always has that allegory or that special lesson or that special piece of advice to help live life better. And in a way, our podcast is doing that too, you know, for these people. So it's been wonderful.
I also think like Trek historically has always built a fan base community that feels connected. And it started with conventions and things like that, and that continues. I think our podcast has created a community and a connection in a way that surprises me. Yeah, and they connect, through Discord channels that are private just to our Delta Flyers gang. They connect through going to conventions together, or they connect through helping each other out. And somebody has to move, and some of our Delta Flyers, Patreon gang or whoever, not just Patreon people, but, they'll reach out and say, hey, you need help moving? Like, it's amazing to me, the sense of community that I wish I could take credit for it, but it's not us, it's them. It's them sort of creating a community using us as a vehicle, but we're just like a convention. Like they create those relationships and friendships and have those memories and experiences. The convention's just a vehicle to get them together. So that's kind of what I've experienced, and that surprises me a lot. We've had a wedding. We had two people that met on our Zooms, our Patreon Zooms.
Our highest tier are now married. Yes. So we have been matchmakers as well.
Amazing.
So
we've been matchmakers. We've been, friendship builders as a podcast. And we've also, the sad side of things too, we've seen some of our very dear Patreon subscribers and part of our community pass away. We've seen a couple of people pass away that we dearly miss. And so does the community, the people that are listeners. So it's been a full life experience, this little podcast. More than 10 people, Garrett, listen to it.
More than 10 people are listening. That's great.
Is that why you guys wanted to continue after you got done with Voyager, that you wanted to continue watching Deep Space Nine?
I think I think the community, they didn't want us to stop at the end. They didn't want us to. That was always the plan. Is like, we'll do it it'll take us 3.5 years, and then we'll be done.
But they go ahead.
Yeah, they definitely didn't want us to stop.
So I told Robbie, I said, Robbie, let's just start reading the phone book then. That's fine. Just as long as they hear our voice.
It doesn't matter for them to hang out.
Get to hang out. Yeah, we'll just do that. But then we took a poll online and everyone sort of said, do DS9, go that way. And so we went that direction. And it's been great. Been a fun ride. It's been great.
Absolutely the perfect next move for
us. Yes.
For us. Yeah. And it's brought in people who weren't really Voyager fans and didn't really care to be a part of it when it was Voyager, but now because it's DS9, they're joining in and seeing that it's more than just the show we're talking about. We're talking about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, that's wonderful. I know we're approaching our time here, so maybe we end by what's next? What's coming up here for you guys? I think this will air in a couple of weeks here. So what's the end of February and early March looking for the Delta Flyers?
Yeah. We're just powering through these episodes. We're recording in advance right now, just because the cruise is coming up, and a lot of people are going on the Star Trek cruise, and we're just trying to get ahead of. We always try to get ahead of ourselves a little bit and get episodes locked up. So that's pretty much what February and March is going to be. Is just getting everything, all our dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's, and then going on the cruise and coming back and diving back into getting more episodes done. So
yeah,
it's happening.
Yeah, we're kind of, we're getting, banking some episodes because of, other people's commitments, and also Terry and Armin, have things that they say, oh, I'm doing this thing with family, or I've got this other project I'm doing for a couple of weeks. Can we get ahead? So
Sure.
so we try to stay ahead. So we're in that mode right now for sure. We're banking some episodes, so we're like marathoning DS9 lately. It feels like.
But though, Robbie, if Zoom and this sort of teleconferencing, if this type of technology didn't exist, we would have a huge problem, because we're not in the same cities at all, right? No. None of us are. And so this has been really the exact right time in history for us to begin the podcast and continue the podcast. And it's been wonderful. It really is. It's it's so easy when you know that, okay, I don't have to fly someplace to meet everybody, whatever. We can just get this done in our own homes. As long as we, watch the episodes, make the notes, and then that's it. So it's, production wise, it's great that Zoom and all, all the other companies out there that are doing the type of, video conferencing software. It's been a godsend for sure.
Yeah. Some of the other things, though, it comes to mind when you say what's next. The thing about this podcast, the Delta Flyers podcast, we're talking about doing some, other things that aren't just podcasts and aren't just Discord channels and Zooms. We're talking about like a Star Trek camp. We're talking about like doing, kind of like a convention, but a camp where you might learn some Starfleet things, and you might go on an away mission while you're at camp, and like a summer camp for grown-ups. And a lot of people have thought that's an interesting idea.
I'd do that. That sounds great.
Right?
It started from, you remember the Huntsville? Remember how they have NASA used to have like a space camp for kids? So I kept thinking I missed that. So my whole thought was like, wouldn't this be awesome if we could do this space for real camp for adults, space camp? And I tell you, Robbie loves this idea. I think this is something that we both are going to champion, and this will become a reality. So that's what's next.
So we're all going to show up at your place, right?
Yes. Pretty much. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, we did like when the Voyager episodes finished, we did a wrap party for our admirals, which was our top tier subscribers. We just kind of promised them that if they stuck with us and were, that committed to helping the podcast get made, that we would throw them a wrap party in Vegas right around the big Vegas convention. And we did that. And it was an incredible night. Like we just, to get to see everybody in person, people that we had really gotten to know well over 3.5 years of Zoom calls and things like that. And then we hung out together in person, and it was awesome. It was great.
And it's crazy because we found a venue, and the venue is called Starbase is the name of the venue. So it was like the perfect venue. I was like, okay, we'll use those guys. So,
Amazing. Well, I feel stupid saying this since you guys are so popular, but if anyone wants to find out more about you guys, like where should they go? Where's the websites? Where's the Patreons?
Well, I mean, you can, any place that you download podcasts, whether it's iTunes or Spotify, you can find us there for the free version, or you can go to patreon.com/the Delta Flyers, or you can come to our website, thedeltaflyers.org, where you can also listen to all the free episodes there. And we also have an awesome merch store, so you can check us out there too. So multiple areas that you can find us.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, Robert, Duncan, McNeil, Garrett Wong, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fantastic. Thanks for the Virtual TrekCon for having us here. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can find us at Treksperts BR on Twitter and Treksperts Briefing Room on Instagram. Please give us a subscribe and rate us 5 stars. So until next time, for Lisa Klink and myself, thanks very much for being here. And the briefing room is now closed.